You're 18 years old. You're standing in a trench outside Candia, clutching a musket your father once held. He's buried somewhere in these trenches. You're not sure where. He fought here for 15 years before fever took him. Your grandfather dug the first version of this trench. He died here too. You were born during this siege. You've never known peace. Every memory you have, learning to walk, your first words, your first kiss, happened while cannons thundered in the distance. When other children ask what your father did, you say he was a soldier. When they ask what war, you don't know how to answer, because this isn't a war. It's a geological event, a permanent feature of the landscape. This morning, an officer asked if you knew why you were fighting. You didn't. He didn't either. But you'll both be here tomorrow, and the day after that, and probably the day you die. Welcome to the Siege of Candia. 21 years, an entire generation born, raised, and killed in the same mile of earth. By the end, the men doing the dying couldn't remember what started it. Neither could their commanders. But I remember. And what I'm about to tell you will make you question whether humans are capable of learning anything at all. Before we descend into this multi-generational nightmare, if you're the kind of person who appreciates history's darkest absurdities, hit that like button and subscribe. The year is 1644. A ship crosses the Mediterranean carrying members of the Ottoman Sultan's harem, valuable passengers, protected by imperial decree. The Knights of Malta, Christian crusaders with too much time and too little oversight, decide this ship looks profitable. They attack, they capture it, they ransom the passengers. The Sultan, Ibrahim I, is not a man known for measured responses. He's known for throwing tantrums that reshape borders. And this is personal. His wives were on that ship. But here's the problem. The Knights of Malta operate from, well, Malta. A tiny island fortress the Ottomans have tried and failed to conquer before. Attacking Malta directly would be a bloodbath. So Ibrahim does what any rational person does when they can't punch the guy who wronged them. He punches that guy's neighbor. Venice controls Crete. Crete is close to Malta. Therefore, Venice is guilty by proximity. The logic is insane. The consequences are real. In 1645, Ibrahim sends an invasion force of 60,000 men to conquer Crete. They land. They sweep across the island. They capture city after city. By 1648, they reach Candia, modern-day Heraklion, the last Venetian stronghold on the island. And that's where everything stops. Not because the Ottomans give up, not because Venice surrenders, but because neither side can move. They become locked in a death grip that lasts longer than most marriages, most careers, most human attention spans. The Siege of Candia begins as a routine military operation. It ends as a warning about what happens when pride matters more than people. Candia sits on the northern coast of Crete. Its walls are absurd, not ancient walls, not medieval walls. These are modern, star-shaped fortifications designed by Italian engineers who understood geometry, angles of fire, and how to make a city unconquerable. The walls are 40 feet thick in places, not tall, thick. You can't knock them down. You can't climb them. You can't really do anything except stare at them and wonder who hurt the architect. Behind those walls, 3,500 Venetian soldiers and maybe 20,000 civilians who realize their lives now depend on mathematics and masonry. Outside those walls, the Ottoman Empire, at its peak, with engineers, miners, artillery specialists, and a sultan who just spent 3 years conquering the rest of Crete. One city left. Should be easy. The Ottomans set up siege lines. They dig trenches. They bring in cannons, massive bronze pieces that fire stone balls weighing hundreds of pounds. They spend weeks bombarding the walls. The walls shrug, so they try something else. In 1648, the Ottomans realize something. If they can't go through the walls, they'll go under them. They start digging, not tunnels for sneaking in, tunnels for blowing up. This is mine warfare. The dark art of burrowing beneath enemy fortifications, packing the tunnel with gunpowder, and turning architecture into rubble. Venice immediately starts countermining, digging their own tunnels to intercept Ottoman tunnels. It becomes a war fought in absolute darkness where you dig toward the sound of enemy pickaxes and hope you reach them before they reach you. Imagine this. You're underground. No light. The air is thick with dust and the smell of earth. You hear digging. Close. Getting closer. You don't know if it's 10 feet away or 10 inches. Then, silence. That's worse than the digging. Silence means they've stopped. Silence means they're packing the tunnel with gunpowder. Silence means you have minutes before your entire section of trench turns into a crater. Sometimes the Venetians break through first. They flood Ottoman tunnels with water, or smoke, or just collapse them. Sometimes they capture miners alive and torture them for information about other tunnels. Sometimes the Ottomans break through first. When they do, they light the fuse and run. The explosion is biblical. Entire sections of wall, thousands of tons of stone, lift into the air and come down as gravel. Then the Ottomans charge the breach. Then the Venetians, covered in dust and bleeding from the concussion, stumble into the gap and fight them off with pikes and swords in their hands. Then both sides go back underground and start digging again. This happens hundreds of times, not over days, over years. Let's pause and understand what 21 years actually means. A child born in 1648, when the siege begins, is old enough to fight in it by 1663, old enough to die in it by 1665. If they survive to 1669, they've spent their entire conscious existence in a war zone. Soldiers rotate in and out, reinforcements arrive, fresh troops replace the dead. But the siege itself never rotates. It never takes a break. It never goes on leave. Every single day for 21 years, someone dies at Candia. Usually more than one person, usually dozens. The math is horrifying. 21 years, 365 days per year, 7,665 days of continuous combat, roughly 130,000 total deaths by the end breath. That's 17 people per day, every day, for 2 decades. Some days are quiet, just snipers and the occasional mine explosion. Some days are apocalyptic, assault after assault, bodies stacked in the breaches, blood turning the trenches into rivers. But the average holds 17 per day. A classroom of dead people, daily, for a generation. And here's the thing that breaks your brain. After year 5, nobody's fighting for Crete anymore. Venice knows they've lost the island. The Ottomans know they've already won the island. They're fighting for Candia itself, for the principle of it. Because walking away would mean admitting you wasted 5 years, then 10 years, then 15. By year 20, they're fighting because they've forgotten how to stop. Around 1666, someone in Venice realizes, we've been doing this for 18 years, maybe we should ask for help. So they do. And to everyone's surprise, people answer. The Pope sends money and soldiers. Catholic princes across Europe send troops. This becomes a holy war, Christians versus Muslims, Crusaders versus Ottomans, the old medieval battle lines redrawn in gunpowder and blood. The French get involved. King Louis XIV, in a moment of charitable delusion, sends his best fleet to relieve Candia. They arrive in June 1669. 40 warships, thousands of soldiers, the finest artillery in Europe. They're supposed to break the siege, scatter the Ottomans, and sail home as heroes. They fire 15,000 cannonballs in a single day. Let that sink in. 15,000 projectiles. The noise alone would liquefy your organs. The smoke would blot out the sun. It's industrial bombardment 200 years before the Industrial Revolution. When the smoke clears, nothing has changed. The Ottoman lines haven't budged. Their trenches are deeper now, more sophisticated. They've learned to absorb punishment the way sponges absorb water. The French try a coordinated assault. Venetian defenders sally out from one gate. French Marines hit the Ottoman flank. German mercenaries, yeah, they're here too, attack from another angle. For one glorious hour, it looks like it might work. Then Ottoman reinforcements arrive. Fresh troops who haven't been fighting for 20 years. They're rested, they're angry. They roll over the exhausted attackers like a wave over sandcastles. The French lose 800 men in an afternoon. 1 week later, they sail away. Louis XIV pretends the whole thing never happened. French historians barely mention it. But in Candia, everyone notices. The world's most powerful military just tried to break the siege and couldn't. If France can't do it, nobody can. Let's talk about Francesco Morosini. He arrives in Candia in 1667 as the new commander. He's 49 years old, experienced, competent, Venetian nobility, the kind of guy you want in charge when everything's gone to hell. He takes one look at the situation and realizes this is unwinnable. The walls are pockmarked with mine craters. Whole sections are rubble held together by desperation. Food supplies are low. Medicine is gone. Half his soldiers have dysentery. The other half have scurvy or trench foot, or just profound, soul-crushing exhaustion. But he's Venetian. Retreat isn't in the playbook. So Morosini does something remarkable. He holds for 2 more years. He rotates his men through the worst positions so no unit breaks from fatigue. He personally inspects the tunnels, going underground with the miners to boost morale. When Ottoman mines blow gaps in the walls, he's in the breach with a sword, fighting alongside conscripts half his age. He holds Ottoman assaults that should break through. He holds when disease kills more men than combat. He holds when the French abandon him. He holds when Venice stops sending reinforcements because they've given up. By 1669, Morosini has 3,600 men left. Fit for duty anyway. Maybe another 1,000 too sick or wounded to fight, but still breathing. He's facing 80,000 Ottomans. And then, in August 1669, he runs out of gunpowder. Not low on powder, out of powder. No more explosions, no more mining, no more shooting. His men have muskets they can use as clubs. That's it. The Ottomans know. They can tell from the sudden silence. They start preparing a final assault, the kind that turns cities into charnel houses. Morosini makes a choice. On September 5th, 1669, after 21 years and 59 days, Morosini opens negotiations. The Ottoman commander, Köprülü Fazıl Ahmet Pasha, is almost grateful. His army's been here for generations too. He's lost 50,000 men. He's sick of this island, sick of these walls, sick of watching his soldiers die for a city he already conquered everywhere else. They reach terms quickly. Venice surrenders Candia. Venetian soldiers get to leave with their weapons. Civilians who want to leave can leave. Nobody gets massacred. It's civilized. After 2 decades of underground explosions and close-quarters butchery, both sides decide they're too tired for revenge. On September 27, 1669, Morosini marches out. Around 2,000 soldiers and 4,000 civilians follow him. They board Venetian ships. They sail away. The Ottomans walk into an empty city. No looting, no celebration. They're too exhausted. The siege is over. 130,000 people died. 2 generations lived and died in trenches. Kings, popes, and sultans came and went. The map of Europe changed. The Ottoman Empire entered decline. Venice lost its last major colony. And Candia, the city they all fought for, was rubble. The fortifications were shattered. The population was gone. It would take decades to rebuild. Nobody won. Nobody could win. But the fighting stopped, so everyone pretended that was the same thing. Morosini arrives back in Venice, expecting something. Gratitude, maybe. Recognition. A parade. A pension. Anything. He gets a trial. The Venetian Senate charges him with cowardice, with surrendering a city he should have defended to the last man, with abandoning Venice's honor in exchange for his own survival. Let's be clear about what Francesco Morosini did. He commanded the longest siege in recorded history. He held a city against impossible odds for 21 years. Well, 2 of those years. But he gets credit for the whole thing because he finished it. He saved 6,000 lives by negotiating instead of dying uselessly. Venice calls him a coward. The trial drags on. Eventually, they acquit him. There's no legal basis for the charges, and even his accusers know it. But the stain remains. For years, Morosini is semi-retired, politically sidelined, treated like a man who failed Venice, instead of the man who gave Venice 2 more decades of pretending they still mattered. Here's the kicker. In 1688, 19 years after the siege ends, Venice goes to war with the Ottomans again. They need a commander, someone experienced, someone who knows how to fight the Ottomans. They beg Morosini to come back. He does. He wins battles. He recaptures territory. He becomes a Venetian hero again. But by then, he's 70 years old and exhausted. He dies in 1694, still in command, still fighting the same enemy he fought at Candia. Some wars don't end when the shooting stops. Today, if you visit Heraklion, what used to be Candia, you can still see the Venetian walls. They're tourist attractions now. People eat gelato on fortifications built to withstand apocalyptic bombardment. The tunnels are mostly collapsed or flooded. Occasionally, construction crews find them. Skeletons still inside, pickaxes in their hands, waiting for an explosion that came 350 years ago. There's a monument to the defenders. It lists their names. There are thousands of names. After a while, your eyes glaze over. They become statistics instead of people. But here's what the monument doesn't say. After 21 years, both sides had forgotten the Knights of Malta. The piracy, the Sultan's harem, the petty provocation that started everything. They fought because they were fighting, because stopping would mean the last 20 years were pointless, because pride compounds like interest. Every year you invest makes it harder to walk away. The Siege of Candia didn't end when one side won. It ended when both sides got too tired to care. That's not history's lesson. That's history's warning. Think about 21 years in your own life. That's high school, college, and your entire 20s. That's a career. That's raising a child from birth to adulthood. That's long enough to forget what you were angry about. Now imagine spending all of that in a trench, shooting at people you've never met, for a reason nobody can explain anymore. That's what happened at Candia. But here's the uncomfortable truth. It keeps happening. Wars that start with clear causes and devolve into inertia. Conflicts where both sides keep fighting because stopping would mean admitting the deaths were for nothing. Sieges, literal and metaphorical, where the sides are so entrenched they'd rather die than compromise. The Siege of Candia lasted an entire generation. The soldiers at the end didn't know why they were there. The commanders didn't know what victory looked like. Everyone just knew they couldn't leave. We like to think we've evolved past this. Better communication, better diplomacy, better understanding of when to cut losses. But we haven't. We're still capable of fighting for 21 years over something that stopped mattering 19 years ago. We're still capable of calling our most competent defenders cowards. We're still capable of turning human beings into statistics and calling it strategy. The Siege of Candia ended in 1669. The mentality that created it is still here, still digging trenches, still lighting fuses, still wondering why the other side won't just surrender. If you've made it this far, you're clearly someone who doesn't shy away from history's uncomfortable truths. Make sure you're subscribed. I've got a lot more forgotten disasters and inexplicable human behavior to uncover with you. Before you go, here's a question. What's the longest you've stayed committed to something that stopped making sense years ago? A job? A relationship? A grudge? We're all capable of becoming Candia, fighting battles we don't remember starting. Drop your thoughts below. I'll be reading them. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next chapter.